Good day, welcome to our BE training series. I'm Rudolf Rotema from Create Infinity. Today we're going to specifically look at skills development, the most expensive part of the BE scorecard. So what is skills development? Skills development is training, and training of black people in your business. They could be employed learners, employed people, so that means staff members currently working for you within your business, or it could be unemployed people, and that means people outside of your business. An employed learner works in your business. An unemployed person could work outside of your business and you just pay their training for them, or it could be an unemployed person that you appoint in your business specifically to undergo this training, but also to get some work experience through this process. So very technical to go about it that way, and I'll give you some points and tips on how we see training work to the best of your benefit a bit later. So skills development is also a priority element, which means that if you do not achieve the sub minimum of 8 out of 20 points, that you will lose a level. You get discounted one level on the BE scorecard. So if you would have been a 4, you would move down a level to level 5 if you do not get that sub minimum on the skills development of on the scorecard. Then different categories and different ways that you can go about this, and we'll talk about it a bit more a little later. But you get formal and informal training. Formal training through accredited institutions where you pay. Learners would go there and spend some time through a program that provides them a qualification, or informal training on the job, CPD hours, those type of things that are a little less cumbersome maybe, but not a lot of value gets generated through them, unfortunately. Different elements to it is bursaries, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, internships, learnerships and apprenticeships, and then work integrated learning to get you to go through a process of practical work, but also applying the theory that you have studied within this process. So let's look at the scorecard on skills development. And as you would see here, there are 4 indicators, and then the 5th one here at the bottom is a bonus point that you can achieve. So the 4 indicators in short, the first one talks about skills development expenditure. So that's any expenditure that you incur, any cost that you incur for training. So it has to be specifically on black people, and it has to be within the program matrix of learning, so within your sector and so on. What it looks at here is that you are able to get 6 points, but to get that 6 points, you need to spend 3.5% of what they call a leviable amount. In simple terms, it's 3.5% of your annual payroll, your annual salaries for the year. So that includes bonuses and benefits and so on, so cost to company. And 3.5% could be quite a big figure there. So that is to get the 6 points at the top. Your following sub-element is for bursaries. So that could give you 4 points, and if you spend 2.5%. In our experience, the bursary element is unattainable, quite expensive, and we'd rather go about finding more points on procurement and management control and potentially ownership than to try and spend ourselves to 4 points here. 2.5% of your annual payroll is a significant amount, and to go to the 3.5% for 6 points at the top is achievable because you spend that money internally. But a bursary is a person outside of your business, and if you spend money on training them and hopefully they come and work with you one day, is very expensive. So something that we consider if we need points, but only after we've gone through all the other potentially available points for a client. The third one talks about skills development expenditure for disabled people. So that you can see is 0.3% of your annual payroll, leviable amount, and it's specifically for black people with disabilities. What we find here to work well is to rather contract the disabled training out to a training center that's catering specifically for disabled people, and they can work there, sign a learnership agreement with you, but you're still getting the value or the benefit of the spend. Obviously, the salaries and the learning, the training part counts for your points, but it's very difficult to integrate new disabled people into your business. So it might be a better option to go outside. I have seen it working internally as well, so it's not written off completely, but then you need to be geared for that. The fourth column is very important, and that is not based on rand value spent, but rather based on the number of people that you train. So here we're looking at the volume or the number of people that takes part in a learnership, internship, or apprenticeship. Those are formal contracts where you sign an agreement between yourself, the training provider, and then the CETA or the accredited institutions that drive this specific training. People need to get workplace experience, and thus this training is quite formalized. So 5% of your headcount, so think about it, if you've got 100 staff, you need to put 5 people on this learnership. The amount of money that you spend on these people would then also count towards your skills development at the top line for the 3.5%. So it's the same staff that goes through the training. You'll get points for the head count here at the bottom, but also for the rand value spent at the top. Important that you do cover these points, because that 6 points for 5 staff is probably not something that you can afford to lose. If I had the decision, if I had to make the choice, I would go for the disabled training, put them on a formalized basis through learnership or internship, and then the rand value would count for disabled and there. So if you do it well and you spend to the maximum there, you already go towards 10 points, and then you can go and work at the 6 points at the top and see how far you get with that. My experience is also that it's rather difficult to get to the full points, purely because the economically active population that we also spoke about under management control is required here. So you need to go and break your number of people, those 5 guys that you're going to train, down between black males, African females, as well as colored males and colored females, and Indian males and Indian females. So you can't only appoint African males, 5 of them, and get full points here. You'll probably get just less than half the points if you do that. So it's important to go and calculate your numbers in advance and track this during the year. The last line on the slide is the bonus points. So what happens is that the number of people that you have placed on these formalized training programs under learnerships and internships, etc., if you appoint them full-time afterwards, you will get bonus points. So if you had 5 and you appoint all 5 of them, you'll get 5 bonus points for that. So they call it absorption in the industry. If you know that they got appointed and you can prove that they got appointed somewhere else, you also get those absorption points then. So let's get a little bit practical here and look at how we would implement skills development. My take is always to look after your own people first. Do not go and train outsiders if you are able to train black people within your business. Currently employed people that do already work with you, that you can upskill to ensure that they grow, and then potentially you get some management control points in the future for them as well. Go for the easy targets, go for the disabled training, ensure that you get the headcount points, and then fill it up with the remaining portions of it. And if you do it outside the business, try and see that you potentially get a little bit of absorption points as well. Secondly, if you look at government's incentives, there's quite a number of tax incentives that you can apply this towards. You can also claim grants from the CETAs to try and see that they fund some of the training for you. And that would also help you to grow your staff pool through that process. But the tax incentives, section 12, capital H, allows you a deduction from your income tax, your corporate tax, that would actually fund quite an amount, big amount of your training cost. So it's important to try and see if you are tax paying, that your accountants also come into the play there and bring their part to assist you in funding this arrangement. Then go and work on all the elements. Do not just chase one or two of them. Go for all of them, barring maybe the bursaries, and ensure that you get value for your points. If you go outside less disruption, you can also structure these training arrangements so that it doesn't interfere in your day-to-day operations. Then it's important to look at the accreditation of your training provider. You don't want to sit at the end and struggle with getting points out of them or information or documents. Ensure that you have that upfront, that you're able to work with an accredited provider that is legit and not a fly-by-night that would cause you headaches afterwards. And if you calculated your amounts or your forecast for the year, track it and ensure that you do stick to those targets. If there are major changes in your operations and in your business, also ensure that because they're going to affect your skills portions, ensure that you get value for that as well. If you have any further questions, you're welcome to contact us on createinfinity.co.za. Send an email to info@createinfinity.co.za, or you can make contact with me through LinkedIn or where you found this video. I hope that gave you some value and some insight into skills development, and that you would get some benefit from this process as well.